I'm Pat Doris. Welcome to The Story, and happy Friday the 13th. You know, tonight we're going to talk about a strategy to move homeless camps out of an area and keep them out. It's something we've rarely seen, but it is clearly working, at least in one area for now. And it's our big story tonight. For years now, the city has played a whack-a-mole game with homeless campers. They're moved from one area to pop up in another, and then pretty soon back to the first area. Well, we're going to show you a strategy that has stopped that, at least for the moment. It's happening now at the Steel Bridge in Portland, where a large, notorious homeless camp in Old Town was cleared out this week. The tents have not returned, and there's a reason for that. Blair Best has our story.
It was a well-known homeless camp. It even had its own name.
I mean, the pit's been the pit forever.
The makeshift neighborhood for homeless people was planted between Northwest Nato Parkway and First Avenue. The Steel Bridge ramps wrapped around it.
People made it actually their home, you know.
This week, city crews, along with a biohazard team, removed the dozens of tents and debris. City outreach workers moved 19 of the people camping there into the mass-sanctioned campsite in southeast Portland. But not everyone got that chance.
Yeah, I was camped over there myself. All my stuff got taken. I wasn't even there.
Now these boulders sit where Colt once slept.
And they said they put up warnings, they put up a sign. Nah, they didn't put up no warnings or anything. Nah, not at all.
We found at least 2 warning signs dated October 4th.
They finally got their eviction notice, thank God. Thought it was never gonna happen.
Aaliyah Mays lives in a nearby condo. She's been reporting the camp to the city for 2.5 years.
Hundreds and hundreds of emails. We are finally getting our neighborhood back.
And it's being taken one step further.
I started my patrol 2 days ago.
Armed security guards like Brandon Chandler now patrol the area
To enforce the state trespassing. So where the signs are posted, that's the areas that I'm enforcing.
Chandler says if someone tries to set up camp, he tells them to leave. If they don't, he files a report and calls someone at the city.
And then they would have a response unit come down here to help remove the individual if they were being defiant and not following the request to leave.
Now, we're also told security guards are making sure people don't set up camp here under the Steel Bridge as crews are trying to repair it after homeless people set it on fire back in March.
I mean, the city is doing, in my opinion, the best that they can. It's just a very large problem.
I'm packing up my stuff, getting ready to move again.
Mike D. camped in the pit.
Off and on almost a year.
He moved a street over near Blanchet House, only to be told by Rapid Response this week to move again.
This is about my 7th time moving in the last 3 or 4 weeks.
The city will be enforcing its daytime ban on camping sometime this fall, and we're told they'll be giving the community a 2 weeks heads up. Yet this type of enforcement we're seeing here in the pit, where security guards quite literally stop people from setting up camp, is unlike any other type of homeless enforcement that we've seen in Portland thus far. In Northwest Portland, Blair Best, KGW News.
Thanks, Blair. So interesting. Okay, so the strategy is clear out the camp, then station private security guards to keep people from returning. Is it possible to do that everywhere in the city? I don't know. Are taxpayers footing the bill on the Steel Bridge security? Is this the beginning of a new push by the city? My friends, those are excellent questions. We wondered about that too. So Blair Best started digging in to find out who's paying for those guards. It was kind of a convoluted trail to follow, but we did get there. Now, a normal news show would not walk you through the reporting like this, but we think there are some interesting takeaways. And by the way, we're not a normal news show, and you're not a normal news audience. So let's go, shall we? First, Blair got in touch with people from both the city of Portland and Multnomah County asking who paid for this. The city told her, great question, go ask the county. The county said, not us, why don't you ask the city? Okay, brick wall number 1. Then the city said, well, maybe it's ODOT. So we got in touch with them. They were not even aware the pit had been cleared out, but they told us to check with yet another city office called Public Environment Management Office. So we got in touch with them. They said, nope, not them. They were only aware that PBOT's contractor was working to fix the damage from the fire earlier this year. Aha. So you might remember this story where homeless folks literally smashed their way through a wall in order to set up camp under one of the steel bridge ramps. It was hidden from view and offered protection from the elements. That is until, as Blair mentioned, a fire broke out in the camp and the hideaway filled with smoke. Crews have been working to fix the damages ever since. So we got in touch with the Portland Bureau of Transportation, and here we finally got our answer. A spokesman told us PBOT hired a contractor to repair the wall enclosure under the steel bridge ramps. It's common practice for construction contractors to keep materials and equipment at a job site around the clock and to hire security personnel to monitor the area to keep their materials secure. That's what the contractor has done in this case as well. So there you have it. It's not some new kind of city or county enforcement to keep camps from popping up back in the places where they were just cleared. It's just a contractor trying to keep their stuff safe. But here's my opinion on this. This really caught my attention. What if this was a new model for our city? It certainly shows what could happen. Can you imagine the city sweeping a block downtown, then stationing private security guards there to keep the campers from returning? What if that happened in a lot of places? What if people really could walk downtown on the sidewalks without detouring around tents and people that are camping? Would that push the campers out to the edges of the city? Would that be bad? Or maybe would it push them into sanctioned camping areas? Maybe it would even convince them to go into shelters? And would it be bad if people who are homeless felt our downtown and our neighborhoods were a little bit less friendly and inviting for their tents? Could that be the key to cleaning up downtown? I don't know. Maybe it's a terrible idea. Our city leaders certainly have not shown much stomach to take an approach like that up till now. And I'm sure some of you are yelling at your screen right now, reminding me a lot of the services for homeless folks are downtown, and that's why the campers have to be there too. Okay, maybe, but maybe not. It may be not fair or practical comparison, but I am struck by one thing. That camp was swept from under the steel bridge, and the security guards are keeping them from moving back. In other parts of our city, sweeps are simply a nuisance, and like it or not, the tents often return. One works, the other does not. It's worth thinking about. That's my opinion anyway. You don't have to agree. I might be full of it. What do you think? Share your thoughts with us, will you? You could email me. The address is thestory@kgw.com or call and leave a voicemail. The phone number is 503-226-5090. All right, now to one of our other favorite topics. Let's talk about tolling. We'll remind you new tolls in the state of Oregon are on pause until January 1st, 2026, thanks to an order from Governor Tina Kotek. But Oregon Department of Transportation's work on the projects to get tolling ready, well, those are still moving on. The first toll is set for the Abernethy Bridge between Oregon City and West Lynn. It will pay for construction work that's happening right there, right now. It's ODOT's most expensive project ever, by the way, costing around $662 million. ODOT tells us that tolling the bridge is expected to cover about $385 million, with the rest being paid for with statewide and local transportation funds. So, yeah, even though we're just over 2 years away, tolling is a big part of ODOT's funding plans moving forward. For those of you who are anti-toll, and we know there's plenty of you out there, you're probably wondering, well, what can be done to stop all tolling? Well, right now, the only avenue appears to be a voter initiative called Vote Before Tolls, or IP4. The statewide initiative petition hopes to gather 200,000 signatures by June of next year in order to put the question on the November 2024 ballot. If it passed, IP4 would require a regional vote by citizens before a new toll can be implemented. It's also retroactive. That means a vote would be required on the current tolling efforts, like the one planned for the Abernethy Bridge. We first told you about the Vote Before Tolls petition about a year ago, as it was just getting underway. Now it's really gaining some traction among elected officials. On Tuesday this week, the Clackamas County Commissioners, well, they voted to endorse IP4. The vote was 4-0, with Commissioner Paul Savas abstaining. Commissioners did not mince words when it comes to why they voted to back this petition.
I and the constituents of this county that I speak to have no trust in ODOT to hear our plight and our concern for the threat of the economic impact tolling would have on our families and our businesses. This county, other counties in the area, our cities, we're tired of basically calling ODOT and hearing our voicemail is full type attitude. So tolling, in my opinion, must not occur.
ODOT basically is a fox watching the hen house. We have got nowhere with ODOT. We have spent a lot of money on legal teams, challenging their 22,000-page letter. We sent them a 30-page answer. We've got no answer from that. Our greatest strength is our citizens being allowed to vote on the largest fee increase in the history of Oregon. And that is whom I think we need to start paying attention to.
Interesting. I think a lot of people think all the citizens will vote no. We'll see. Commissioner Paul Savas, the only one who abstained from the vote, argued that they should wait to vote on something like this until they had a broader coalition of counties and cities who want to join them and endorse IP4, with the idea being that more people who endorse it all at once, well, that creates a bigger wave and makes more PR instead of sort of a piecemeal approach. And the vote also sort of ties the hands of county employees moving forward, by the way.
Once this vote is made, this would prohibit county employees while on the clock from advocating for or against this particular position. They could only offer objective, impartial, neutral, factually based and accurate information, which is fine, but that does add, as that's the milepost right there. Staff cannot aid the board in promoting this initiative once this vote is taken.
Interesting, a bit in the weeds, I know, but we thought it was interesting. Chair Tootie Smith said the employees have not been doing that in the past, so really shouldn't be a big deal moving forward. We'll be watching, though, to see if other localities that would be affected in the future with those tolls throw their support behind IP4. We asked ODOT for a reaction to the Clackamas Commission backing the petition. They sent us a statement saying the 2017 transportation package in the state legislature that identified tolling as an option had broad bipartisan support. And, quote, the future of Oregon's transportation system depends upon diverse, stable funding, and we look forward to working toward those solutions in the coming months and years. Coming up next on The Story, today a tentative agreement was struck between Kaiser Permanente and the coalition of unions whose thousands of employees hit the picket line late last week. The strike was hailed as the largest healthcare strike in U.S. history. So what did it take to get both sides to agree? We'll explain the tentative agreement when The Story returns. A good number of you are Kaiser patients or employees, and you'll all be happy to know that the coalition of unions that waged a 3-day strike, well, they've come to a tentative agreement with management. It involves 85,000 union healthcare workers in 7 states, including Oregon, Washington, and California. Terms of the deal released by the coalition of unions shows that if approved, workers would get a total raise of 21% over the next 4 years. It also sets a new minimum wage for Kaiser healthcare workers of $25 an hour in California, $23 an hour elsewhere, reaching those marks within 3 years. The lowest paid union members, by the way, were making around $18 an hour, so not a bad jump there. The agreement also has language about outsourcing and protections for experienced workers. It also includes a wide variety of initiatives to invest in the workforce and also to address the staffing crisis. I had a chance to talk earlier today with one of the many workers who will be impacted by the proposal. Kevin Darden works at Kaiser's Sunnyside Medical Center. He said Kaiser had drifted away from the historic agreement of 1997 that forged the Kaiser Union Bond and made it one of the best healthcare systems in America. We did an in-depth story on the agreement last week. As part of that, we showed how unions were an integral part of founding of Kaiser and its growth over the years, both with union employees and also with union members as patients. Darden has worked at Kaiser for 14 years and said he watched with frustration as the rift grew between workers and management.
And I think a big portion of that is, there's been a lot of cuts to departments. There's been a lot of people that feel that they've been overworked. There's a lot of people that feel that they're doing, twice or 3 times more the work. We constantly see emails from Kaiser saying, our membership's growing, especially here in the Pacific Northwest, but we weren't recruiting the employees we needed to meet up with that demand. So that was our biggest concern going into the strike, was making sure that Kaiser executives knew, the staffing issue that is going on. When members are calling and they can't get an appointment for, 4 to 8 weeks to see a primary care provider, that's a problem for everyone, and we're not just, Kaiser employees, we're also Kaiser members. And so we feel those effects that it's having on our patients. So for us, that was a big deal to address. And we're happy that we have something tentatively on the table that will help address those issues and be able to provide the care for our members.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question. Do you feel like this tentative agreement now maybe kind of lowers the heat between the two sides and does make you feel like there's going to be a difference?
Oh, absolutely. I think a big thing that we saw was the last time we got an agreement was in 2019. It was before COVID. So I don't think anybody was expecting, for us to be facing with a worldwide pandemic, right? So with that, I feel like this is the first step that we were able actually to meet at the table after this pandemic and really solidify an action plan to how to better service our community and how to better recruit and retain our employees. And I think all the things that we have on the table now is a major victory to all union employees here in the Pacific Northwest.
The agreement is still tentative, but Kevin thinks that the union members will approve it. If approved, it will cover the next 4 years. Still to come on the story. Remember the drama and ultimate fall from grace for former Oregon Secretary of State Shimia Fagan? Well, the cannabis industry audit by her office at the center of the controversy was combed over by an outside auditing firm to try and uncover any problems, ethical or otherwise. What they found and recommended the state do, and why the current Secretary of State is not following one of their recommendations, at least not yet. We'll have that when the story returns. The Oregon Secretary of State's office will not pull an audit of the cannabis industry from its website, at least not yet. An outside auditor recommended the move, but current Secretary of State Lavon Griffin-Valade has decided to wait until she reviews the cannabis audit herself. Now, this all goes back to former Secretary of State Shimia Fagan, who held a side job with a cannabis company while overseeing the state's audits. And yes, those audits included a review of the cannabis industry, which amazingly found the state should ease up on the industry. She somehow did not see that getting paid by someone in the industry while her team audited the same industry was an incredibly bad idea. But it was. And it led to this video in which she resigned in early May. The audit had the wonderful title, by the way, that we're showing you on the screen here. Oregon needs to modernize cannabis laws to help grow the state's economy and to ensure equitable opportunities and benefits for all communities. And while that may be true, does anyone trust the findings since the audit was pushed by the Secretary of State, who was literally on the payroll of a large cannabis company at the same time? So the governor asked an outside firm to take a look and see if it was done correctly. The results came out yesterday. The outside auditors said, yes, for the most part, they did get it right. But these outside folks found problems too. First, the good news, the review found Oregon's audit team did not have its independence impaired. Also, it reported that the audit, planning, fieldwork, and reporting process did not deviate from their typical standards and practices, which also, by the way, are consistent with the national standards and practices. They also found no evidence the audit team was compromised or that Secretary Fagan exerted undue influence on the audit. Okay, so that's good news. Now for the bad news. The cannabis industry was audited because the Secretary of State, Secretary Fagan, wanted it done. Again, kind of a no-no for someone working on the side for that industry. Here's some background. Oregon law requires the state auditors prepare a plan of attack, if you will, for the upcoming year's audits. And they can't just throw a dart at a board and decide which departments to focus on. It has to be based on a formal risk assessment method. When it came to the cannabis audit, the audit plan stated that there was an analysis of 24 risk factors. But, in fact, the outside review found no, there was no systemic analysis at all. Instead, audit targets were picked by interviewing state agencies, being familiar with state programs, and what the Secretary of State wanted. The outside review notes that it's not against the law for the Secretary of State to pick at audit targets, but state law does require the choice to be backed up by that risk assessment, which did not happen here. The other criticism was from the outside group was this. As it became clear the Secretary of State was embroiled in this mess to include the cannabis audit, the Oregon audit team did not take steps to fortify its findings. Since it was pretty easy for the rest of us to start wondering if the final result was wrongly influenced by the Secretary of State, the outsiders thought they should have done that. The consultant said that Oregon's auditors should have done things like added specialists or additional reviewers and other resources to conduct the audit. They could have obtained additional evidence, higher quality evidence, or alternative forms of corroborating evidence. They could have realigned the findings and conclusions to reflect the evidence obtained or reconsidered the views and perspectives of responsible officials. Finally, the outside consultant said the cannabis audit should be pulled from the public website and reworked. Current Secretary of State Lavon Griffin-Valade said she will personally oversee a reevaluation of the evidence presented in the audit. But while she does that, she's not pulling it. The audit will stay public. All right, let's move on to something a little lighter and more fun. The KGW Toy Drive, the Great Toy Drive, is coming soon. If you'd like to help out and collect donations to help local kids this holiday season, you could go to kgw.com/toy to sign up. We'll send you a collection kit with directions on how to help out. Last year, we collected more than 35,000 toys. So let's see if we can beat this year. Again, just go to kgw.com/toy to get started. That's the end of our show. Thanks for watching. And remember, the story, our collective story, never ends. I hope you have a great weekend. I'm going for a big bike ride, and then I'm going to be at the LaSalle High School auction tomorrow night. Coming your way next. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend. Straight Talk's coming up next. I'll see you right back here on Monday.